Dr. Singhvi, appreciate you taking the time out and joining us this evening, sir. Thank you. The first question, Dr. Singhvi, we were speaking to Ms. Pinky Anand and she was of the opinion that the constitutionality of the Places of Worship Act is in question. And that's the question that I want to ask you right now, sir. Because we have one lower court after the other taking up highly sensitive, highly contentious issues like the, of places of worship. Should they be doing so? Are they in violation of the Places of Worship Act 1991?
Well, you're asking a legal question, so let me give you a legal answer. There are, of course, wider ramifications, political, social, etc. Legal question of yours, the answer has to be an emphatic no. The suit is not even maintainable. It is not fileable. There is no point of wasting time in adjudicating a proceeding which at inception is stillborn. Now let me tell you why it is stillborn. It is not a value judgment. It was a value judgment made by Parliament decades ago to put things as they are by an act called, as you know, the Places of Worship Act. That act has stood the test of time. It's no point talking about the constitutional validity of something being under challenge. You may have 100 acts in India, the validity of which is under challenge because there could be 1 million petitions challenging them. Does that mean that till such time as that challenge is allowed, the act is stayed, the act is quashed, the act is removed by judicial order? Till such time you will ignore it? Is that parliamentary act a part of the law of the land? There is absolutely, it is elementary that so long as an act stands, and there are only two ways, either the act is repealed by, three ways, repealed by Parliament itself, which has not happened here, or a court order has stayed the operation of the act, which has not happened here, or the court by a final judgment has quashed the act, which has also not happened here. Absent these three, how can you start ignoring an act? What does the act say? The act says that irrespective, and no value judgment is required, except political value judgments are being made. Absent these three cases, so long as this act stands, the answer is very simple. That irrespective of religion, irrespective of location, what is there, and going back in history to question the origins, the historical evolution, the archaeological evidence, the existence, the validity, blah, blah, blah. All these are barred by a statute of Parliament. Now ask yourself the question, directly, indirectly, in whichever way any suit, it could be a suit filed by you, it could be a suit filed by me, it could be a suit filed by a third minority, fourth minority. How does the suit progress if there is a bar from inception? That's why I said the suit is stillborn. Now on top of a stillborn suit, if commissioners are being appointed, if people are sent for examination, if people are acting under a stillborn suit, does it not become the theatre of the absurd in legal terms? Does it not become a kind of a weird exercise? But let me tell you, madam, much more serious than this narrow legal question is the social and political repercussions. You want to create an instability by creating a pot-boiling atmosphere. Whether you want to carry it like this for 2 years, whether you are looking for some particular election or a 2-year later election, whether you want a cauldron on the most diverse spot on earth, planet earth, to be boiling and hot, it is highly irresponsible. You know, Gandhiji once said that an eye for an eye means the entire world will be blind. How far will you go back? You'll go back to your nearest end of the lane where you live and demolish a monument there because it was by era X? Or will you go 2 kilometers up ahead where you'll find an earlier one of era Y? And if you don't like era Y, there'll be 10 people who don't like era Z before that. Eye for an eye will make this country blind. A monument for a monument will make this country a wreck and a ruin. That was the philosophy behind the 91 Act.
Okay,
so don't play this political game, this social game,
right.
Apart from a
Dr. Singhvi, we talk about the philosophy behind the Places of Worship Act, but when this act was made, and that is what Ms. Anand was also referring to, is that it too has exceptions because many are talking, and correct me if I'm wrong, of the section 3A which many say with the exemption of any place of worship referred in the said subsections, which is an ancient and historical monument. On the basis of this, many are arguing, Dr. Singhvi, that either the Gyanvapi nor the temple or the masjid in Mathura come under the Places of Worship Act.
Please pick up section 3. Please read it. Please pick up any notification. Has that been activated for Gyanvapi or for any other structure? Where is the document? Where has that power been exercised? Was there an exemption or an exception which was activated on the date the suit was filed? Let's not fool the people. Just because you mix up with jargon, with legalese, it's a very simple piece of legislation. As far as the properties you are concerned about or talking about are concerned, there is no exemption, no exception, no notification. Therefore, the suit is stillborn. Now, tomorrow, after 10 years, that challenge, legal challenge, some constitutional challenge will succeed. Equally, it may fail. Will you act on a parliamentary act on the basis that it has already succeeded? You will assume what is thought to be proved. So I think, people who are saying all these things also know the truth. They know the legal truth. They also know the political truth. But if you are the governors of this country,
right,
who want to be able to govern with such cauldrons and festering sores across, then well, good luck to you. You are the one who has to manage it ultimately. You are in the saddle. Think a little ahead.
Right. Dr. Singhvi, the other point that is being raised by many, and I want you to, throw some light on that, is, the Supreme Court asking the administration in Varanasi to ensure the safety of that claimed shivling that has been found near the Wazukhana. Is it in any which way legal recognition of the existence of the shivling inside the mosque, Mr. Singhvi?
That would be a bizarre comment in terms, I'm not saying you are making it, but even the most...
No, sir, I'm not. I'm picking up, what we were, all the kind of arguments that are coming in support of it.
The biggest votary, even the biggest votary of ignoring the act will not say that. If they say it on their own peril, and they display their ignorance or understanding of the law. First and foremost, the Supreme Court matter is sub judice, so let's not second guess the Supreme Court. Second, the Supreme Court is an interim order. They've decided nothing. They said so in open court 5 times. That between now and when they hear the matter, they want a stability and they will therefore compromise and balance both sides. Number 3, the larger issue has to be yet decided, be it by the lower court or the Supreme Court, namely whether if the act applies, so long as the act applies, so long as the act is not modified or stayed, can this suit at all be maintainable? The last thing they did was recognizing the validity of this, that or the other. That's the last thing they intended to do. They said so in open court. So let's be fair, at least to the Supreme Court, even though you're scoring political points and social points across the spectrum.
Dr. Singhvi, the other thing is, would you see this now opening up a complete Pandora's box? Because where does the buck stop? Because then you can go all the way back to the Jain Bodh temples, which many would allege our temples were built on.
Pandora's box is a mild term. It doesn't always have unpleasant connotations. It can have pleasant connotations when you open Pandora's boxes. This, what is happening, is much, much worse than any Pandora's box. It is creating a new, fresh beehive. And the sting will be unpleasant, unnecessary, totally self-created, done according to me for ulterior political gain, for social messaging, for fulfilling ulterior philosophical constructs, and above all, for defying, diluting, circumventing a parliamentary act which has stood for decades. I think it's not a Pandora's box. It is a, unnecessarily letting a genie out of a bottle or creating a Frankenstein monster for some very, very petty gains.
Dr. Singhvi, leave alone bringing the structure down, but legally, politically, and you're both. I want to ask you, do you see this go down the Babri Masjid or the Ayodhya land dispute way?
Let's not talk irresponsibly, casually or flippantly about such serious issues. Let's not paint doomsday scenarios. I hope to God that what we are discussing is wrong. I hope to God that what I am saying and what you are predicting impliedly does not ever happen. I believe that India needs much more, deserves much better. They don't need these debates at all. They need genuine debates for progress, for development, for unemployment, for price rise, for so many other things. But if that's your agenda, so be it. Whatever God has in store for this great country, God has it in store for us.
So do you think it's a possibility now that, and this is, I'm asking you a political question there. Do you see this as a possibility, because the government has majority both in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, that they come out and actually scrap the 1991 law in question we're talking about?
Why should I speculate about that? I mean, that is a parliamentary will. That's a separate question. Nobody is saying that Parliament cannot do this or that. There is, of course, parliamentary power, but we have not even a bill introduced for that. Secondly, if and when such a bill comes, whether it will pass muster, whether it will be constitutional, whether the bill can itself be struck down as unconstitutional, etc., etc. So these are issues which are unnecessarily being created and gone into. As I said, it will be a very difficult genie and Frankenstein monster to ever put back in the bucket.
Do you see any political messaging behind it, Dr. Singhvi?
What do you mean? I said it is entirely political. I mean, do you see any messaging in the mildest form? I believe it is entirely nothing but crass, crude politics. I have no hesitation in saying so. I said so earlier also.
So my last question before I let you go. Legally speaking, what do you, of course you can't predict what the Supreme Court does, but what do you reckon, with the kind of alleged evidence that has been put together of Hindu relics found inside the Gyanvapi Mosque, what could happen in court tomorrow?
See, I am not here to second guess the Supreme Court. I am not here to speak on a sub judice matter. I am not here to start giving subjective views about something actively sub judice. I am making that very clear. As a lawyer, I simply believe that before all these vexed questions which people are putting on the table and you are articulating other people's views, before they are even looked at, before they are touched, it is but obvious that a court has to decide the very maintainability of the suit in the teeth of an act. That is the core question. It's a question of law. You can't put the cart before the horse. You cannot start deciding consequential questions first and ignore the root question. And I hope and trust that some court will decide that soon.
Dr. Singh, we appreciate you joining us, and that's what we're going to end on. It's not a matter of faith, it's a matter of law.